All right, simplest radical form. Now, this should be review from algebra. Maybe you remember it, maybe you don't. What you want to do, you want to start from your list of perfect squares. Again, a perfect square, 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2, 4. 3 squared, 9. 4 squared, 16. 5 times 5, 25. 6 squared, 36. 7 squared, 49. Then 8 squared, 64. 81. 100. 121. 144. Those are all perfect squares because they have an exact square root. Now you want to find the biggest number from that list I just drew that is a factor that divides in with no remainder to the number. Now, like on 1, you would go through, maybe make a guess, maybe you try 9, 50 divided by 9, you get a decimal, doesn't work. 16 doesn't go in without a remainder, but 25 is a factor of 50. Now, when you first split it up, you haven't taken any square roots yet, so you draw 2 square roots. 25 goes into 50 exactly twice. If you have 2 quarters, you have 50 cents. Put the perfect square first, then the other one second. Again, I use 25 and 2 because 25 times 2 is 50. Now, the whole point of this, I know the square root of 25, it's 5. I've taken that square root, don't break the square root anymore. Square root of 2 is an irrational number. It goes on forever as a decimal, never repeats. So we just leave it as radical 2. So that answers 5 radical 2. On 2, you go through the list, you try dividing. Once you get to 49, you see that 49 times 2 is 98. So that's why we use 49 and 2. Again, it has to go in with no remainder. It has to be a factor. 49 times 2 is 98. Final answer, square root of 49, 7. 7 radical 2. 3, this one you probably wouldn't have to look too hard at that list. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 is a perfect square, so we put that first. 2 radical 5. 4 uses 4 again. 4 times 6, 24. 4 is a perfect square. Square root of 4 is 2. Again, then just bring the other one down. Now on 5 here, 5 has 108. When you start going through, I'm going to switch to my calculator here. Oh, come on. Now we're looking for numbers that'll multiply to 108, and it has to be on that list. So you would take like 108, divide by, I don't know, maybe you try 64 first. You want the biggest number, so you want to start somewhere around half. Nope, that doesn't work. 108 divided by, then there was 49. Nope, that doesn't work. 108 divided by, let's see, 6 squared was 36. Oh, hey, there we go. Now, I did that one because if you know your times tables, you know that 9 works as well. 9 times 12 is 108. But you got to use the biggest, and that's 36. So 36 times 3 it was, gives you 108, then 6 radical 3. On 6, half of 32 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. Square root of 16, 4. 4 radical 2. 7, now be careful with 48. 48's like that 108 back then. A lot of people want to use 4, and 4 does go into 48, but it's not the biggest. If you divide a bunch of them, you find 16 times 3 is 48. You gotta use the biggest perfect square. Again, the number that you want to put out front, the number from the list. 8 though, if you see 63 and you try to think of numbers that multiply to 63, 9 probably pops in your head. And yeah, definitely 9 and 7. Then square root of 9 is 3, so 3 radical 7. On 9 again, if you grab your calculator and you start trying these, you'll find 64 is half of 128. Square root of 64 is 8. And 10, 200, hey, it says 100. 100's a perfect square. Radical 100. 100 times 2 is 200. Square root of 100 is 10. Bring that radical 2 down. All right, now, like I had said, this is from algebra. You should have used it at one point in geometry in a normal year, but last year, it wasn't normal, so maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But here's how it works with the trig. You can get an x-squared equation. It says simplest radical form. So don't even bother trying to factor it. It won't factor. You go straight to, like it says here, the quadratic formula. Now, A is 1, B, C, so x equals negative B, so negative 2, plus or minus B squared, 2 times 2 is 4, minus 4 times 1 times negative 6, all over 2 times 1. Now, if you try to type that into the calculator, you'll get a decimal that goes on for the entire width of the calculator. You don't want to try that because it says simplest radical form. So I have to break the square root down like I did on the first time. So all I'm going to do is calculate what's underneath it. Don't type the square root in. If you got to use a calculator, type in without a square root 4 minus 4 times 1 times negative 6. And you'll get 28. So I got to break down the square root of 28 from the list of perfect squares. I'm not going to scroll back up to it. Again, if you're pretty decent at your times tables, 4 probably pops into your head for factors of 28. And it is, you do use 4. Radical 4, 4 times 7. Now I'm going to bring this back into the question. That's like work off to the side. I know the square root of 4. Square root of 4 is 2. And I'm going to bring that radical 7 with me. 2 times 1 is 2. Now we're pretty much done. The only thing here is I got to divide everything by 2. And this is nice. They're both 2's on top. So negative 2 divided by 2, negative 1, plus or minus 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So you can write the 1 there, but it's 1 times radical 7, which is just radical 7. Now look, It's plus or minus, and that gives us two separate solutions. You might see it split up. Again, 1 times radical 7 is just radical 7. You can write that second one, you don't need it though. You might see it split up, one has a plus, one has a minus. That's how this works into this quadratic stuff, because of the square root. Now, on number 12 here, again, negative b, so a, b, c. Negative b, negative 4, positive 4, plus and minus. B squared, negative 4 times negative 4, positive 16, minus 4 times 4 times negative 7, all over 2 times 4. And again, like here's what I meant on the last one. You can't type that square root in. I'm switching the calculator here. If I type that just the square root, you see, you get a decimal that just goes on. We got to type just what's underneath the square root. 128. So now I'm going to go back. I got to break this radical 128 up. I'll do this not in the middle of the question for you. 64 times 2. So square root of 64 is 8. Now I'm going to bring that back with me into the question. Again, this whole thing turned into radical 128, and that turns into 8 radical 2. And the bottom, 2 times 4 is 8. Now, unlike that last one, I can't divide the 4 by the 8. So this is a little weird. We haven't done much of this since the algebra review. You got to divide. You can divide everything here by 4. Again, we're not going to do the radical. That term is covered by the 8. So 1 plus or minus 8 divided by 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Radical 2. All over 2. And we'll just leave that one put together.